Matthew?
Matthew Lee, Inner-City Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Thanks for coming to the briefing. I wanted to ask you, Ms. Mohammed, about the IMF today put out a report on how it can work, they say, with the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the things that they're pitching is for countries to reduce energy subsidies, which they say will perform an environmental goal, but some people would say it gives rise to obviously protests in a lot of countries where it takes place. I wanted to know if what the UN sort of secretariat side, what you think of the IMF's proposals, particularly that one. And Ms. Gallach, since we have you here, I wanted to ask you kind of a media access question. There's all this talk of side events, and obviously everyone's trying to keep a list, but currently there's going to be like 20 passes to go into 1B total, and I wanted to know, is there some reason that number has to be fixed at that, other than on, let's say the 20, the Monday, and also whether the sustainable development side of the Secretariat can do everything it can to make sure that there are passes and access to these side events so that they can be covered as well as possible.
Well, quick answer to the report that's come out from the IMF. I think we all understand that we have to reduce some subsidies. I think it does certainly make for progress in trying to achieve the SDGs. But, in many of these cases, there has to be a transition. When you're talking about the protests, is what is on the other side. In many governments that want to take away fuel subsidies, fossil fuel subsidies, there isn't, what's the alternative? Are they going to see that in their lives? And many institutions to deliver service, the mistrust in government, I think those have to be taken into consideration. Want to take it away? You've got to have an alternative. In my country, we managed to do this with fuel subsidies, and we created a program for it. And we targeted where people felt this most, young people and jobs, health. So we augmented a lot of what was not happening fast enough, infrastructure. So I think if people see where the reduction of that subsidy is going to go and the implications for better results in their lives, then I think it's easier to achieve. But there has to be a carefully calibrated transition for that. It cannot just happen on its own in isolation. And we will do the best that we can in terms of passes. We are struggling for space. I think that's a reality, and Christina will speak to that. But we're trying to stretch space the furthest we can and bring people into the room virtually and otherwise, but maybe you'll speak to the reality.
You know that the presence of leaders is quite unique, and therefore the presence of media is also going to be unique. And on the question of access, without entering into details, you have been, I'm sure, in contact with all the Malu colleagues who have been trying to make ends meet and make a space available. The restrictions, including security restrictions, are enormous, but I think we have a good balance that should allow for the right access. But I would invite you, Matthew, to pursue the conversation if there are aspects that still you are uncomfortable with, or you are not clear with either myself, but in particular with the colleagues of Malu. I am also aware that there have been walkabouts so that everybody knows which are the places that you can go and how you can go to them, so that you optimize your time. You're going to be super busy, everybody's going to be super busy, and there is probably another one that I wouldn't be surprised that some of you can join tomorrow in the afternoon. So taking into consideration that the situation is unique and that there are going to be difficulties in satisfying 100% everybody, but we will try to move to 99%.
Thanks.